Any questions, any comments before we just waste away? Rebecca. Anyone? Toby.
From the audio lectures from last week's material,
Okay.
there was the one on Marx and then the second one on Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. And it was interesting, I thought, because the Wealth of Nations seemed to be both the foundation for what Marx was saying later on how workers are kind of divided against each other and whatnot, and they're going in and they're doing it not because they're passionate, but because they have to. But it was interesting because the Wealth of Nations seemed to stack up the division of labor as both a good thing, and that it brought more money to everybody, and it assumed that money and purchasing power would make people happy. But it also acknowledged that as people are less skilled, they're just doing more repetitive tasks that makes them less fulfilled. So that just seemed interesting to me, how it seemed to be for the Wealth of Nations both promoted and also acknowledge that there are issues with that system. Not really a question.
No, it's a very depressing and sad place to be in life. You sign up for a class, probably not completely reflecting as to what it is that you're giving up for the next 16 weeks. You sit in the class, oftentimes it's boring, it sucks the life out of you, it's mind-numbing, and you do all this busy work. You write essays you don't really understand, you don't really want to. You listen to audios or videos, you read literature, and none of them make any sense. And if they do make sense, there isn't much you can do about it. But at the end of the day, you're here for a grade. But it takes 16 weeks. You enjoy the grade because hopefully it will get you to a place you want to go, and hopefully the place you want to go is something that will kind of remain meaningful for a while. Its expiration date is just a long ways away. But oftentimes, when you think about it, you have to ask, is it really worth it? And it's not that Adam Smith or Karl Marx have said anything new. It's the sort of things that have been going on for a long, long, long time. It's kind of like the internet. Some of the stuff that we weren't really exposed to, but now because of technology, they're just in our faces, And what Smith and Marx and Freud have been saying really are components that have lived inside us and outside of us for a long, long time. They kind of just bring them out. And I don't think that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because if you begin to think about them, you begin to live with conflict. And if you don't have the proper coping mechanism to live with the conflict, it'll just crush you. Imagine if you sit here and every moment that you're here, you just say, should I pack up and leave? Should I stay? This is nonsense. This is garbage. Do I really, it's kind of like the saying in the Gospels, what benefit is there for man to gain the whole world but lose his own soul? You're here for an A, that's the world. But you lose so much. You lose time. You lose vitality, vigor. I don't know. It's a tough place to be. And I think one of the difficulties with people like Marx and Smith and Jesus Christ and Moses and Malcolm X is that the problem with these people is that they talk from a position of power. I can come to class and I can talk all sorts of nonsense. And you're 18, you're impressionable. You may actually walk away from the class saying, yes, I can go out there and make the changes. But look at my position versus your position. I am 60. You're 19. I have all these degrees. You're pursuing to get them. I have nothing to lose. You have everything to lose. I can talk this trash, and I've been talking it for the past 30 years. And to your ears, they sound really, really good. No longer do I need to pay a price for my desires or ambitions. You, on the other hand, the price that you may have to pay may be all the desires, all the securities that your physical body needs. You know? So Adam Smith talks about division of labor, talks about the invisible hand, talks about how capitalism corrupts you and me. And Marx does the same thing, Freud does the same thing. But these are people who have the privilege of sitting home, sometimes going out to coffee shops, observing people and all of the dysfunctions, observing society and all of its dysfunction, going home, sitting, writing down their reflection. And then they print them out. And then you and I get to read them. And we come to realize how miserable and pathetic our lives really are. But what can you do about it? Imagine you find this class boring. But what are you going to do? Just grab your backpack and leave? Well, you need this class to graduate. Are you willing to pay that price? The answer is no. You know, and at the end of the day, what you realize is that your physical body that lives in society, that needs food, shelter, clothing, you need a companion, you need money. You need validation from other people. You need to be nice to other people. You know, all this talk in therapy that don't hide any emotions inside you. Be open, be free, don't repress anything. Have you ever tried that? You know, it's kind of like the Beatles song, Love is All You Need. I mean, most of us in this class have had some age on us. We've tried love. You come to realize at the end of the day, maybe after 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, it's the least important component in the relationship. You need someone who's intelligent, who is reflective, who is compassionate and kind, who gets angry for the right reason. You know? Life doesn't revolve around love. It revolves around intelligence. Adam Smith. They're poison. They're good if, again, you know how to use their ideas well. But if you're working and your customers are wanting things from you and you don't treat them the right way, well, first they won't give you a tip, then they'll complain, then you lose your job. And the truth is, people are not likable animals. Most often. You know, when you find someone who is weak, then they're likable. You can't but love old people. Yeah, they just sit there. They're like a little cat. They can't walk, they can't talk, they can't hear, they can't poop. You take care of it. But young, vigorous people who are filled with arrogance, hubris, sloth, wrath, you know, the Catholics, 796.
So you said everything has an expiration point, even the most fulfilling thing at some point, the joy and the excitement, and, you know, of something new, doing something.
The common denominator in, Bridget, hello. The common denominator in every branch of life is suffering. Everything expires. Your dreams will fall apart. You'll come to realize you've been pursuing a mirage. It's going to happen. You know. That is the foundation of all of life. Everything that you and I do in life is done for one purpose: to cope with the disappointments, the potential miseries. I mean, why are you in school? You want a job. Now, of course, you can masquerade as, this is my passion, right? But the truth is, I mean, you're 18, you have no idea what's waiting for you. You may come to realize that after maybe 5, 6, 10 years of going to school, you've majored in the wrong field. You know, I was going to get married to a woman a long time ago, and I worked really hard to capture her. And eventually she said yes to me. The moment she said yes, I realized that it's the wrong woman for me. And then I went into hibernation. I fixed myself, and I went out there, and I found a woman that I said yes. I pursued her for another 10 years. When she said yes to me, I realized, oops, the wrong woman for me. And that's basically the business of life. You know. And I think to some extent Sigmund Freud was right. And I think all these religious teachings, you know, what all of them are really doing is telling you that Life down here is really, really difficult. Make sure that when you find yourself in a difficult situation, you know how to cope well. It's not that people have not been bullied before. It's not that they have never been depressed in the past. Human beings have been going through the same emotions, negative emotions, for a few thousands of years. It's only recent where none of us really have the ability to cope with these emotions well. So you have therapists on the rise, you have people who are medicated on the rise, you have depression on the rise, you have violence on the rise. And the more you got religion from a culture, philosophy from a culture, the less people are able to reflect, examine, well, the more lonely and depressed and miserable they're going to be. This is not a good way to start the morning. I'm very disappointed in you guys. This class is always depressing. There's no food. Okay. Well, let's talk about what Sarah asked on Tuesday. Love. Unless you have any other questions before we wrestle with that. Anyone? Toby, Jesus Christ.
Would you
You're
say
like
that
Costco.
it may be a more traditional society, or in an older time when people were simply focused on surviving, getting food, and living to the next day, that there was more of not a contentment within the unfortunate circumstances of life, but an acceptance of it. There wasn't an expectation that there would be more than just going through the day, trying to survive.
If you're able to kind of stretch your memory back, say, a couple million years ago, imagine yourself. Just close your eyes and meditate on the following images. Here's Toby a couple million years ago. Horns and hooves and all that stuff, okay? Now, there is no Costco, there are no Safeways, no cars, no bikes. You cannot drop down from paradise because of the sins committed by Adam and Eve, your parents. Horrible people, by the way. And so you come down, you're completely naked. Just imagine yourself naked, like shower time, right? You're naked. The only difference is that you're in the wild, you're out. You look out there, well, what do you find? You are living in the midst of dinosaurs and reptiles and big, terrifying animals. Add to it the fact that the weather is cold. What are you going to look for? Are you going to sit and say, what is the meaning of my life? No, your instincts are going to kick in, because for the most part, what's happening with you for the next couple thousands of years is you're going to figure out, well, how can your flesh survive the climate? Whether it's hot or cold, you have to find a way to cope. God doesn't exist for you. There is no act of compassion. You're not going to be an animal activist. You're not going to be a vegan. That's for hippie people. Privileged, entitled, modern people. Your function a couple million years ago is very, very simple. Survival. Not intellectual survival, not emotional survival, not spiritual survival, physical survival. A woman who's getting abused by a man, or vice versa, they're not sitting there being a Jew saying perhaps there is a purpose for this. No, you want to get out. It's physical survival. So most of your brain space, okay? Now whatever emotions you may have, they're going to be profoundly negative. Am I going to be eaten alive by this lion? Okay? Is the tribe next door going to come here and whack me on top of my head and steal what little I have? It's all about survival. Okay? There is no UN. And so most of the emotions you have are inspired by your physical existence in a very physical environment. You don't have a Sigmund Freud coming down saying, so Toby, why do you have negative emotions regarding the Godzillas? That's stupid. or turning on the YouTube channel and searching for like Eckhart Tolle or Sadhguru. Why do you have anger inside you? Why are you confused? Are you kidding? I look down, I have no clothes, the weather is freezing, animals are trying to eat me, what the hell do you want me to do? Should I meditate? Okay. So you use most of your brain space again is about physical survival. And you have this beautiful brain that's designed for only one purpose. How can I survive the day? Not get eaten. Not being beaten. Food, shelter, and clothing. If you want to call this reflection, you can. The point is, every ounce of your mental energy goes into how can I survive the day? That is it. It has taken us a few hundreds of thousands of years to come to a place where you have a Safeway, you have a Costco, your life is relatively in a place of contentment, you have a good amount of brain space that is empty. It's like a floppy disk or one of those flash sticks that you have. There comes a point where there's a message on your screen. You can't save any more thing on your this drive because it's full. So you begin to delete things. So what happens throughout our evolution is, as life becomes more stable, agriculture, housing, domestication of animals. These are humongous things, man. You come to realize that you can't survive by yourself. And so instinctually you go to someone and say, will you be my friend? Okay? If you just help me lift this beam, I'll let you stay in my shelter. That's how friendships are created. You manipulate other people, exploit other people, you do it in a decent way. And once you realize they have done something for you, then you say, I owe them something now. Now you become roommates. We've always been in the business of manipulating, exploiting other people. But we used to do them in a decent, noble, dignified way. Now time passes. Now remember, you wake up in the morning and all you think about is, how am I going to survive? You're not about seeking the kingdom within. It's not about justice and peace and removing conflict. It's about survival. Okay? Once your life begins to be more comfortable, you have less fear about the things you were fearful of. Consider the fact that you have a fridge in your home. You have a freezer in your home. It means that you're not going to spend so much mental energy figuring out where you should go to get food. It's right there. So now that you have this free mental space, something awful happens. Your body is no longer moving around. You sit somewhere, and then you say, what am I going to do now? Boredom sets in. Boredom, which is a component that never really existed for us human beings. Just think about it. People say money is the thing that corrupts human life. It's not true. It's boredom. The only thing is, people who have money, okay, are able to kind of fill the space of boredom. If you're intelligent in a decent way, if you lack intelligence, well, you just become mean-spirited and violent. Okay? So anytime any of you in this class, despite all the poverties that may exist inside you, if any of you experience boredom, know that you're in a profoundly privileged position. You have brain space. Where you sit, if there isn't anything out there that's interesting, attractive, inspiring, exciting for you, you sit and you say, now what? And that's the problem that began to kind of become a virus for all of us. The moment you have free space in your brain, you sit and say, what is the meaning of my life? Why do I keep moving from this shelter to that? Why do I keep pursuing fancier and fancier foods? Better looking outfits? Is that really what a human being is? Okay? Now you begin to kind of entertain some abstract ideas. Is there a goal? Do I have a purpose? You know, when a lion sees another lion being like eaten to death, okay, as a human being, when you see someone die, you kind of sit back and say, well, he's dead. It seems that is the conclusion to every life. I am going to die. And then you say, well, if I'm going to die, is that going to be it? Is there a goal? Do I have a soul? Now you begin to be a bit more abstract in thinking. All right? And it's the virus that contaminated human life. I don't know when it came about. You know, as far as I know, it began with Gilgamesh some 5,000 years ago. Okay? That's the first written tale given to us, that there was a guy who found life to be completely meaningless, and out of boredom, and because he had a lot of power, he began to push people around in a very mean way. He fell in love. He became domesticated. Love was taken away from him. He came to realize that nothing in this world is really worth pursuing except love and wisdom. And he began to pursue it until he found it, only to realize it's useless. It makes you alone. It makes you an introvert. It makes you reflective. It makes you come to realize that you're carrying this burden called wisdom. It's bending your back, breaking your knee, and there isn't much you can do with it. People are not able to receive it, and even if they were, they wouldn't be able to apply it. So either way, it's a lose-lose situation. I mean, one of the most horrific stories that, should any of you be interested in, is read the Gospel of Judas. It's a beautiful story, not because it's about Jesus, because it's a story that is common to all great philosophers and sages and thinkers. You know, which is, you come to realize that physical life, despite all of its glamours, it doesn't really have much to offer you. I don't know why it happens to some people. You know, my father seems to be a happy man. You know, a lot of people in Buddha's time, they were happy with just living. You know, they see death. There was no need for them to be transformed. They saw sickness. No need to be transformed. But you have a strange guy named the Buddha or Jesus. For some strange reason, he's just discontent. Don't know why. You know, Jews are pretty content going to synagogue on a Saturday, praying and going home, and just following the Ten Commandments. No, not Jesus. He's got a lot of brain space where he sits and examines. And I don't even know why he has some emotions that are toxic. Why he sits there and says, this is not for me. I don't know why he's like that. You know? And then he goes away. 18 years later, he comes back. And he looks at the Jews and says, you guys are on the wrong track. Really? 3,000 years of tradition? Wrong track? How old are you? 30. How old am I? 90. You're telling me I've been wrong for the past 90 years, that Moses was wrong? That El Shaddai, Elohim, Yahweh, they're all wrong? Yeah, they're all wrong. You guys have not been able to interpret the Old Testament and the Ten Commandments the right way. You know. And so he's a young teacher, and that's one of the problems with being a young teacher, is that you're filled with hope and excitement, inspiration. You know, he goes back to his town, preaching the gospel, only to and he thinks, and you know, he's actually good intention. He thinks that if he comes there with passion and innocence and purity and honesty, people will receive him. No, that wasn't the case at all. You know, and at least in the Gospel of Judas, he comes to realize this has been a complete waste of time. You know, this is a guy who doesn't eat so he can go to the bar and have a good time. It's not a guy who eats so he can sit and watch TV comfortably. He eats so he can have enough energy to go to somewhere and give a sermon. I mean, that's the reason that he eats food, sleeps, to have enough energy to be inspired and inspire other people. he comes to realize at a certain point that why do I need to eat? I mean, no one's going to listen to me. Why do I even want to survive? And the nice thing about his version of suicide is that for him, all of life expires, not just a tiny branch. He doesn't say, well, I just don't want to go to school anymore. I don't want this marriage anymore. Okay? He just says nothing in life is worth pursuing. And that is such a mature and evolved place to be. You know, you should consider yourself very, very lucky if you have found, for example, sex for you not to have expired up to this point, or drinking, or smoking, or video games. You know why? Because the moment it expires, you have an empty brain space. Now imagine if you've been addicted to playing video games for 10 hours a day. I mean, that's a big chunk of your mental space, right? There comes a point where you're no longer having fun. What are you going to do with that 10 extra hours? There is the addiction that's going to haunt you, the memories that are going to haunt you, and then there's the fact that you hate playing games at this stage in your life. What the hell do you do? Where do you go? Who do you follow? What passion do you pursue? How the hell do you get rid of the haunting memories of video games? The excitement, the inspiration, where the hell do you go to find them? And now depression sets in. Well, how do you cope with that? You know. So my recommendation, and I'm nobody to give advice to anyone because I need recommendation advice myself in plenty of areas of life. If there is something healthy that you're doing, just keep adding seasoning to it so it doesn't expire. It doesn't lose its beauty and luster. So you could keep pursuing it. And do this until you're 90. Okay? Then just before, and when you get sick, or when you know you're about to die, you review your life, you realize it's been a complete waste, at least you have these conflicting emotions. A few minutes before you're dead. A few minutes is good. If you're having those conflicts at the age of 19, they're going to stay with you till you're like 90. That's a miserable life. You'll not be happy in marriage. You'll not be happy in parenting. You'll not be happy in school. You just won't be happy, period. Because every time you begin to have a tiny amount of joy and happiness in your life, you say, why? Does it have any meaning? Why am I doing this in the first place? You know, so when you take a philosophy class, a real one, not this one, it's a fake one, right? When you take a philosophy class and you guys spend like 6 weeks or 10 weeks where your professor is talking about the examined life and how valuable it is, do not believe him. Do not trust him. He is a 60-year-old man who gets money to trash talk life, okay? He sits in his office, reads a lot of books, writes a lot of ridiculous books. He has forgotten what it means to be 18. He's forgotten how terrifying it is not to have a mom or a dad or an income. He doesn't know what depression is, what loneliness is. Find something interesting. Doesn't matter what it is. Be practical. Look, let me kind of do this in a different way. For those of you who are here and you know that this is a philosophy class, know that the word philosophy comes from two really, really important and pregnant words. Philo and Sophia. Okay? Philo is love, and we'll talk about it. It's profoundly complicated. Sophia is about wisdom. In the 21st century, you don't need to have the wisdom of God. You need to have worldly wisdom, the wisdom of the physical life. Don't be a stupid hippie. It won't get you anywhere. Don't drop out of school. Understand the physical world really, really well, and the consequences of some of the things that If you don't do, you'll get crushed. Stay in school. School is not there to inspire you. It's not there to educate you. It's there to make you money. Bachelor's degree is no longer enough unless you get your BA from UC Berkeley or Yale or Stanford. Then you can go to Silicon Valley as a 19-year-old and make about $200,000 a year. Food is expensive. It needs money. Rent, money. It may be now you can surf. Is that what's couch surfing? You can maybe be able to do it now when you're 19 or 20. Okay. You may be doing okay riding your bicycle. But there comes a point where your body will not allow you to ride your bike anymore, long distances. You may be okay doing $20 an hour right now. But eventually, hopefully, many of you will have a companion. You will have a family. It requires money. Remember, if you are weak in your physical life, you will give power to almost every person out there to use you, abuse you, exploit you, give you emotions that you will hate. Modernity needs a good philosophy of life. Not life according to Plato, not life according to Jesus Christ, life according to 21st century. You live in capitalism. It's a system that will not be kind to you. It's not going to stretch out its arms and saying, here's $10. Walk around Oakland, see all the tents in the streets. You think all those homeless people just suddenly became homeless? You don't think their parents tried to save them? You don't think they themselves tried to save themselves? There is a breaking point. Parents eventually come to realize their love is not enough. They are being ruined. They give up. Your friends will eventually give up on you. Eventually, you will give up on yourself. So you need to understand that when you take a philosophy class and your instructor only focuses on the love of wisdom that was given to you by Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Jesus Christ, Malcolm X, well, not Malcolm X, okay, because he was a really, really good worldly philosopher, okay? You don't need those things. Get your physical life in order first. All right? Once you have the privilege of having a steady income, right now, most of you in this class are nomads. A nomad is a person who's always on the move. And when you're always on the move, you're unable to create stable narratives, psychological narratives that give you meaning, identity, that will not corrode, that will survive the test of time. Okay? If you are a nomad, you will touch things. 2 weeks later, 2 months later, or 2 years later, they'll turn into dust. Okay? Understand human history really, 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 really well. We have spent the few million years of our existence domesticating, taming our physical environment. We don't like to move around. We don't like confusion. We don't like frustration. These are great stories that you can get from your ancestors. Don't be a stupid hippie. It didn't work in the 60s, it's not going to work today. Don't do drugs. You need every single one of your brain cells to survive. Fall in love. Just don't bank on it. until you're stable. Don't move to Virginia because you fall in love with a guy or a gal. It's not worth it unless you're 90.